After over 20 years of working in the comic book industry, I've decided to embark on a new adventure. Join me as I explore the strange and unusual, doing everything from sharing my favorite books, comics, and horror movies, to traveling to abandoned spaces, horror-themed bars and restaurants, and all sorts of spooky spots. Welcome to Curious Haunts. I'm your host, Jeremy Haun. As a kid growing up in the Midwest, I never expected that my horror journey would take me around the world on amazing, spooky adventures of my own. I've been fortunate, and I've been able to do that writing and drawing comic books. Comic books are a magical medium. As much as I love movies, television, and prose, my favorite way to tell stories is through comic books, and most of them tend to be spooky ones. From time to time in this series, I'll give you a peek behind the curtain of Curious Haunts into the projects that I'm working on. In fact, at the end of this episode, I'm going to do just that. So be sure and stick around and learn about the project that's been haunting my brain for the past year and a half. How's that for spooky goodness? So today, on Curious Haunts, I'm going to talk about two period piece takes on the horror genre. One is a brand new novel that is the sequel to one of my favorite books of the past few years. I'm also going to take a look back at the beautiful special edition Blu-ray from one of my favorite visionary horror filmmakers. We'll also take a little trip to Los Angeles, California, where I attend the annual Comics Pro Conference, and then, with the help of a few of my favorite people, explore the spooky side of the City of Angels. But first, let's have a drink. And welcome back to the Corner Bar. This week, we're going to make one of my favorite 3-ingredient cocktails, a staple around here at the Corner Bar, the Revolver. As far as cocktails go, the Revolver is a fairly young drink, created in San Francisco by bartender John Santer in the early 2000s. It's a Manhattan riff that even someone who doesn't do all that well with vermouth, like me, can enjoy. So those 3 ingredients for this simple masterpiece, they are bourbon. Pick whichever one you'd like. Today, we're going to go with Woodford Reserve, because I got an amazing deal on some recently and ended up with a few bottles. Next up, the real star of the Revolver, Coffee Liqueur. There's a lot of options out there nowadays when it comes to coffee liqueur, from the delicious Mr. Black to my choice, Kahlua. I feel like this drink needs a bit of a sweeter coffee liqueur, so that's why I end up going with Kahlua. I say experiment and use the one that you like the most. Now, the final component of the Revolver is orange bitters. As usual, I'm going to go with Regan's orange bitters. They're spicy, complex, and easily my go-to. So now, let's build the drink. First off, we're going to start with a mixing glass. And then we're going to want to take and add 2 full ounces of our bourbon to that. We'll follow that up with a 1/2 ounce of our coffee liqueur. Here we go. Originally, somehow, I misheard or misread the ratio of bourbon to coffee liqueur years and years ago when I first made the Revolver, and ended up with 50-50 bourbon and Kahlua, which is a lot different. I'm not saying it was bad, it was just pretty much candy in a glass. So yeah, 2 ounces of bourbon to a 1/2 ounce of coffee liqueur. And to finish things up, we'll do 4 dashes of Regan's orange bitters. All right. From there, we're going to want to take and add just a couple of ice cubes. Then we're going to want to stir to get it nice and cold for about, 30 seconds or so. You really just want to get it cold, get a little bit of dilution in there. Once things are good and chilled, we'll strain the drink into our lovely little Nick and Nora glass. All right. Now, you can use a coupe or really whatever you'd like. I just love a Nick and Nora glass. And to finish this delicious treat off, we're going to take a nice slice of orange peel. Then we're going to take a match, light it, hold it over the glass, and give it a nice little flame. Voila. And there you have it, the Revolver. So now that we have a nice drink, let's head back to the auditorium and see what we've got for you today. I've been going a bit wild on buying new physical media lately. I like to say that it's because of this show, but that's mostly an excuse. I think I'm coming to terms with my maximalist phase. There's just too many amazing new special editions of books, comics, music, and movies that I love available right now, and I adore them all. Speaking of things I love, I'm excited to share a brand new novel release with you, Rose of Jericho, by New York Times bestselling author Alex Grecian. I've known Alex Grecian forever. We met while he was working in comic books on a fantastic Image Comics title called Proof, a story about a Sasquatch who works for a secret government organization that hunts cryptids. You know, just the kind of thing I'd love. The comics industry is a pretty tight-knit community. We generally know each other at least decently well. But Alex, he's a true friend. Now, it's pretty common in life, and especially in the comics industry, for folks to say that they want to write a novel. But for the most part, nobody ever does. But somehow, in 2012, Alex did just that. He released his first New York Times bestselling novel, The Yard. And you know what? It was damned good. In the 13 years since releasing The Yard, Alex has released 7 novels, and my favorite of them was Red Rabbit, released in 2023 from Tor Books. Red Rabbit is a Wild West horror story about a posse that sets out to hunt down a powerful witch. I loved every page of the book, and more, the world that Alex built. I wanted more. And more we got with The Rose of Jericho. Some of my favorite characters from Red Rabbit return, heading to the town of Ascension, where the dead just aren't dying. It's a wonderful, brutal, haunting story, a second volume that lives up to the magic of the first, and again, leaves me wanting more. Rose of Jericho is just out and available in hardcover. Red Rabbit is still available in hard and softcover. If you love westerns and magical folk horror tales, get to your favorite bookstore and check them out today. You won't be sorry. Next up, let's talk about another period piece horror story, the Criterion Collection Blu-ray release of Guillermo del Toro's The Devil's Backbone. I've been on a real Criterion Collection kick lately. I've always loved Criterion, with their unparalleled dedication to the restoration, preservation, and distribution of film. Criterion Collection recently had a big sale, and my editor, Jamie S. Rich, and I had a little unofficial contest to see who could order more. And as usual, Jamie won. But I managed to snag a box full of some amazing films. And while, as it goes, I own several of them in other formats, I just had to get them again in beautiful, new Blu-ray and 4K releases. One of those films was The Devil's Backbone. I've always been a fan of Guillermo del Toro's work, especially his more personal Spanish-language films. And probably my favorite of them all is The Devil's Backbone, a Spanish Gothic film set in 1939 in the final year of the Spanish Civil War. It's the story of a young orphan trying to find his place in an orphanage with an unexploded bomb in the courtyard and the spirit of a child wandering the halls. The Devil's Backbone is a beautiful, haunting character piece set against a truly unsettling bit of supernatural horror goodness. It has one of the most amazing representations of a ghost that I've ever seen. And of course, like all good horror, in spite of the unsettling supernatural aspects, the real monsters are people. This Criterion Collection Blu-ray edition of The Devil's Backbone features a newly restored digital transfer, new subtitle translation, audio commentary by Del Toro, and a ton of in-depth special features. And as usual, the design is impeccable, featuring artwork from one of my favorite comic book artists and creature designers, Guy Davis. I'm glad I picked up this new Criterion Collection edition of Devil's Backbone. It's a hauntingly beautiful film, and I loved having an excuse to rewatch it. And now, I'd like to invite you on another little trip, where I visit a series of spooky, strange, and delightful places that inspire and fascinate me. I eat, I drink, I seek out the weird and wonderful. And today, let's head to Los Angeles for the Comics Pro annual industry meeting and a look at the spookier side of the City of Angels. Los Angeles, a city unlike pretty much any other. To be honest, I have a weird relationship with LA. I travel a lot for my work in comic books. At least once a year, I visit several of the major cities, New York, Chicago, Seattle, Portland, and others. In every one of these cities, I almost immediately find the thing that makes it special, that I truly love. LA, though, just wasn't so easy. This year, Ignition Press, the comic book company I co-founded with my partners, Philip Sablick, Jamie S. Rich, and Eric Gitter, was happy to take part in the Comics Pro annual industry meeting. It was a chance for us at Ignition, along with an amazing team of creators, to meet with comic book retailers and tell them what makes our company special. Also, I convinced my family to come along on this trip, because I had an extra special treat in store for the boys. But more on that in a bit. Oh, and the usual spooky goodness? That's coming too. On my little trip to LA. We set out early, car loaded, coffee in hand, for the Northwest Arkansas National Airport. It's a short drive, and in spite of the nearly ceaseless renovations to the airport, we made it through security, boarded, and were in the air in no time. We had a short layover in Denver, because, for some reason, I can't quite go an entire episode without somehow ending up at the Mile High City. Before long, we arrived at the Burbank Airport, and after a short drive, we found ourselves in the official spot for Comics Pro, the Hilton Los Angeles North Glendale. And because the boys desperately needed to do so, we dropped our bags and immediately made our way to Geeky Tea and Games, a fantastic board game store, tea shop, and cat rescue. We picked up some tea, said hi to the cats, and the boys ended up buying enough stuff to officially overfill their suitcases on the first day of the trip. With a big week ahead of us, we ended our first night in the best way possible. We met up with my friend and publisher, Philip Sablick, and his wonderful family for an amazing hot pot dinner at Shibuya. While I've known the Sablicks for the kids' entire lives, this was the first time when we got to actually sit down with everyone together. It was an amazing meal with good friends, just the perfect way to end our first night in LA. The next day we were up early, and while my family went off shopping, I met with the whole Ignition Press crew to do a bit of planning for the event. Since our staff lives all over the country, and we work virtually, it felt good to all be in one place. Later that evening, after the day's work was done, it was time for that surprise I mentioned. My sons knew that we were heading to LA for the Comics Pro event. They knew that we have some nice dinners, do some shopping, and see the sights. So we loaded up in the car and drove across town for a night out. And their big surprise. We arrived downtown at the horribly named Crypto Arena. As we met the rest of the group, I could tell that both boys were trying to figure out exactly what was going on. They played along and were patient with the whole thing, but I could see the wheels turning. And then, the exact moment when they figured it all out. Small smiles turned to big smiles. And by the time we made our way upstairs to the box, full-on grins. We've always been a family that loves music, back even when they were little. We go on trips, build playlists, and listen to them the whole time. It started with the rather broad range of stuff I listened to, and then, over the years, as the boys found their own taste in music, broadened from there. Sometime in 2019, my oldest Ethan shared Tyler the Creator's album Igor with me. It ended up being part of our constant rotation since. Tyler's newest album, Chromacopia, dropped in late October, and we all absolutely loved it. And now, just a few months later, there we were, together with my boys and some of my favorite people, seeing one of our favorite artists live. We had an absolutely amazing time. Most importantly, the boys had a blast. Tyler played the entirety of Chromacopia, plus a fantastic selection of our favorite songs from previous albums. And in spite of nearly overfilling their bags, the boys hit the merch table with a vengeance. I'm grateful to experience all of it with them. I'm grateful to my partners for helping make it happen. What a night. The next day, still giddy from the concert, I finished up my meetings and then met my family at the Griffith Park Observatory. I've always been fascinated with the observatory. Built in 1933, thanks to the funding of Griffith J. Griffith, the observatory is an LA icon, appearing in hundreds of films and TV shows, including Rebel Without a Cause, Dragnet, The Terminator, House on Haunted Hill, and many, many more. It's an amazing testament to science and history. The architecture and the view over the city are nothing short of breathtaking. Later that night, I joined the Ignition team and a small group of comic creators at Kevin Meehan's brand new seafood restaurant, Coast. The food, wine, and company were absolutely fantastic, and we even got a tour of the kitchen to see where the magic happens. The Comics Pro annual industry meeting officially kicked off the next morning. We set up, shared our plan with retailers, and more importantly, gave them the opportunity to chat with a few of the amazing creators we have working with us, including Stephanie Williams, Leah Williams, no relation, Cullen Bunn, Jim McCann, and Cy Spurrier. We ended the day with a fantastic presentation by our publisher, Philip Sablick, and then threw a party. It's a special thing to be surrounded by a group of friends, colleagues, and family in just the right spot. Checker Hall was definitely the perfect spot, set up on the second floor of a beautifully restored Masonic lodge. With delicious food, absolutely fantastic craft cocktails, and an overall amazing atmosphere, it was definitely my kind of place. It's going to be hard to find a better party venue for our next event, but we're definitely up for a challenge. As much as I would have liked for them to stay, after the party, my family needed to head back to the Midwest. While I was sad to see them go, with meetings, panels, dinners, and yes, parties out of the way, it was time for the true, spooky exploration to begin. And who better to enlist for these adventures into the bizarre and unknown than my pal, fellow horror writer, Cullen Bunn. In addition to being one of the absolute best and most prolific horror comic book writers in the industry, Cullen also shares my love of exploring and a good drink. So we set off to find both. Our first stop along the way was the Tam O'Shanter, the legendary Scottish steakhouse owned and operated by the same family in the same location for over 100 years. From the moment we walked in, I knew we picked the right spot. With classic old-school decor, a mind-blowing selection of scotch, and even a delightful collection of Scottish comics on hand, the place was pretty much made just for us. And a lot of people have felt that way over the restaurant's over 100-year history. In fact, the Tam O'Shanter was a well-known favorite spot for Walt Disney and his Imagineers. We picked a nice spot, sat down, and ordered drinks and a bit of lunch. We ordered a pair of old fashions and Scotch rarebit, a famous cheese sauce consisting of cheddar, Scotch ale, and cayenne, spread on slices of toasted sourdough. But the true star of the show was the prime rib sandwich. By this point, I feel like we've established that I'm a fan of a good sandwich, and the prime rib sandwich at the Tam O'Shanter might be hands down one of the best sandwiches I've ever had. Bellies full, we made our way to the H.P. Lovecraft Historical Society, only to find out it's actually closed on Sundays. As disappointed as I was not to get to visit this spot with Cullen, don't you worry. I promise I'll be back on this trip. This one had to happen. While we waited for our car, we stood outside one of the most unexpectedly spooky spots in all of this excursion, the Griffith Park Motel. The little motel just had a vibe that made the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. And while horror writers don't scare easily, some places are just too much, even for Cullen Bunn. After making our escape, Cullen and I made our way to a spot that's been on my list of places to visit for quite some time. The Mystic Museum and Gift Shop in Burbank. Opening its doors in 2013, the Mystic Museum is LA's one-stop shop for spooky goodness, featuring an oddity shop, a horror-themed gift shop, and even an immersive horror experience. This place has a bit of everything that I love, from horror movie prop replicas to bones and specimens to stickers and horror-themed tiki mugs. And of course, Cullen and I couldn't stop by without making a little trip to Horror High. I love interactive exhibits, especially when they're an over-the-top, unabashed love letter to 80s and 90s horror. We made our way through the Horror High exhibit and then into the Mystic Museum itself, the shop's own personal collection of the strange and unusual. Before heading out, we grabbed a pair of fortunes from the Crypt Keeper fortune-telling machine. And while I was expecting something dark and dire, our fortunes were looking good. Next up, we made our way across the street to the Mystic Museum's sister store, the Horror Bodega. It's a whimsical spot filled with all of your sugary, horror-themed needs. Need some horror-inspired hot sauce or spooky candy goodness for your afternoon boost? The Horror Bodega is the spot for you. After all this exploring, Cullen and I had worked up a real thirst, and since Cullen loves a good tea drink just as much as I do, we decided to make our way to North Hollywood, to the Tonga Hut. Established in 1958 by brothers Ace and Ed Libby, the Tonga Hut is LA's oldest surviving tiki bar. It's a perfect cozy spot that focuses on the classics made to perfection. We ordered a round, and then another. There's a thing about tiki drinks. Always stop at 2. But it was a day out with Cullen. We talked about horror, the trip to Comics Pro, and trying to find a little work-life balance. And somewhere in there, Cullen asked if we should have just one more. 20 minutes later, we remembered a very important fact. We had a hockey game to get to. Now, LA being LA, what we'd calculated as a perfectly reasonable trip back downtown took a little longer than expected. But look, let's blame the traffic, not the extra drink. By the time we made our return to the still horribly named Crypto.com arena, the game was well underway. The Kings were up, and everyone was having a fantastic time. We hung out, had some fantastic food, and enjoyed the rest of the game. I've only seen a couple of hockey games, and this was the way to do it. The next morning, Cullen and I left the Hilton Los Angeles North Glendale and made our way across town to the SLS Beverly Hills. It was a centrally located spot, closer to our remaining meetings and the things we wanted to see. We got checked into our rooms, I rested a bit, and then adventure called. I sent the text. Want food? I've got the spot. Within just a few minutes, Cullen and I were off on another day of exploring the spookier side of beautiful sunny Los Angeles. We arrived at another Los Angeles institution, El Coyote. Opening in 1931, El Coyote has a long flowered history, most famously known as the last place that Sharon Tate and other victims of the Manson family murders ate their last meal. Cullen and I made our way to the bar, ordered some of their finest margaritas along with huge, sizzling plates of fajitas. I immediately knew that this was going to be another good day. By this point, I've been at several of the spots on my must-see oddities shop list. One that I've always wanted to visit is Memento Mori, a place where death and the macabre can be appreciated. In Latin, Memento Mori literally means remember to die, but is often more loosely translated to remember death. While I prefer the literal translation, I think remember death is a little bit more inspirational. The Memento Mori shop is an award-winning curiosity shop that has been featured on numerous television shows, with signature pieces appearing, well, all over the place. It's the kind of spot Cullen and I are always dying to visit. The second I walked in, I knew I was going to be sending a box of treasures back home. We made our purchases and then made our way along Hollywood Boulevard, along the Walk of Fame, on our way to yet another LA institution, Amoeba Music. Amoeba has changed a lot over the past few years. The last time I visited the shop was sometime around 2011 in their massive city block-sized building on Sunset. The shop announced the move to the new location in February of 2020, moments before the pandemic shutdown. Amoeba finally reopened their doors in the new location on Hollywood Boulevard in the spring of 2021. While I'm sad that the shop has changed, you can tell that they've worked hard to keep much of the spirit of the original store alive. Cullen and I looked around, picked up a few stickers, looked at the clock, and realized it was time for another drink. So we made our way over to Melrose Umbrella Company, a post-Prohibition style cocktail bar. This was the end of our little adventure. The next day, I would be off to meet friends and Cullen had meetings to attend. So we celebrated, ordering old fashions, and at some point, Cullen showed me the medicinal magic of Underberg, a bitter herbal digestif hailing from Germany. According to Cullen, the stuff makes you a whole new man. As someone who believes in constant growth and transformation, though hopefully not into some maniacal creature of the night, I gave it a try. And you know what? He may be onto something. With drinks done, we made our way back to the hotel and said our goodbyes. I'm grateful for Cullen, thankful for his willingness to join in on this little adventure, and even more for his friendship, even after all these years. The horror community is a special place, and Cullen Bunn is a damned highlight of it. The next morning, I was off on a whole different kind of adventure to a place that is kind of the exact opposite of the strange and unusual, unless you have the right guide and know where to look. But I'm going to save that little side quest for another time. We're going to do that on occasion, and I'm fine with it. The next day, I was up early. We were launching this very show, and to celebrate episode 1 of Curious Haunts, I was off in search of the best donuts in LA. I've eaten a few donuts. While I'm not particularly a sweets guy, the occasional good donut is worth its weight in gold. And even among all the donuts I've tried, Sidecar Donuts is something truly special. The downside of getting donuts on my own is that I tend to want to try at least a bite of, well, most of them. With flavors like huckleberry, butter and salt, Saigon crumb cake, lemon pound cake, and berry parfait, how could I begin to choose? In the end, I went with 3. Huckleberry, butter and salt, and for a bit of something different, chocolat. The chocolat was tasty, but I was able to stick with 1 bite of it. The other 2, might be the best donuts I've had in my life. And while I love the huckleberry, it was the butter and salt that I'm going to be thinking about forever. For a guy that's not really a sweets guy, if I lived in LA, the butter and salt donut at Sidecar would definitely be a problem. More than a bit happy, I decided to move on. So I made my way over to Hollywood, to a little oddity shop called Out of the Dark Well, only to learn that they were closing shop. Disappointed, I picked up a few things from their Everything Must Go sale and walked back downstairs. I wasn't far from the Museum of Death, so I decided to take a walk and enjoy the scenery. Ever walk by a place and get a feeling you just can't quite explain? Whatever part of most people that looks down a strange side alley and says, "Hey, that's creepy, let's not go down there," is a little broken in me. When I see an alley that reminds me a bit of that famous dumpster behind the diner scene in Mulholland Drive, I decide to check it out. And part of me was a little disappointed when there wasn't anything back there. And while I love strange places and creepy things, not long after, though, I came to a realization about something I actually can't handle. And that was at the Museum of Death. I don't really know what I expected from the museum. Definitely some skulls, maybe a mummy. For a guy who loves to write and draw absolute brutality and gleefully watches pretty much every horror movie out there, the thing I actually can't handle is real human pain and suffering. I didn't pass out or anything on the way through the museum. At least I have that. But it didn't take me long walking through the large-scale, blood-splattered actual photographs, videos, and various items to know that it wasn't for me. I made my way through, focused on the things that were more, well, for me. The skulls, mummies, and whatnot. Now, I do want to say that the Museum of Death is an amazing collection. They are truly dedicated to preserving and presenting an unflinching look at death. They take it seriously, and I respect that. And while it definitely wasn't for me, I'm glad I visited the Museum of Death. I definitely learned something. I stepped outside of the Museum of Death, regained my composure, and decided the thing I needed was a bit of whimsy. So I made my way to Echo Park for a completely different kind of experience. The Time Travel Mart is a convenience store out of time. They've been here forever. Or, if you think of time in a more fixed, linear fashion, some say that the Echo Park location started sometime in 2008. They have everything a time traveler could need, from time travel sickness pills, primordial soup, robot milk, to bottled time. Every item is either crafted in-house or by a select group of artists and craftspersons. But the real magic is around back in the Learning Center. Because at its heart, the Time Travel Mart is also a 501c3 nonprofit organization dedicated to supporting Los Angeles students with their creative writing skills and help teachers inspire their students to write. I chatted for a bit, picked up a few items, including one of their temporal passports, got a couple of exclusive Time Travel Mart stamps, and made my way back into our own timeline. I had dinner and drink plans before long, but I had a bit of time for one more stop along the way. It was a beautiful sunny day, so I decided to walk along Echo Park Lake for a bit before making my way downtown. And of course, once again, ran into another roaming pack of carnivorous geese. I'm not sure if these infernal creatures were the same gang we ran into in Denver, but I had a feeling that maybe they were. They're crafty like that. I've seen a lot of spooky things on my travels, but it wasn't until I made my way to the edge of Echo Park Lake that I saw true horror.
Hello, from Waymo.
I came to LA to find the strange and unusual, and nothing is quite as terrifying as a ride in a robot car. For a guy that's perfectly willing to walk down a side alley looking for monsters behind dumpsters, or explore some abandoned space alone in the dark, this ride gave me shivers. Before long, I arrived, surprisingly safe and sound, downtown at one of my favorite spots, the Last Bookstore. Set in a former bank building, the Last Bookstore is a 22,000 square foot dedication to books and whimsy. I've always liked the Last Bookstore. Sure, there are better actual bookstores around, ones that stock deeper and have more of what I'm looking for. But for me, the Last Bookstore is about the vibe. It's the kind of place where it feels like something magical might happen around every corner. And sure, it's all infinitely Instagrammable, but what isn't nowadays? If a selfie in a delightfully repurposed book tunnel possibly leads someone onto a journey into the joy of the written word, I'm all for it. I picked up a couple of pulp paperbacks, a t-shirt, and a copy of the wonderful Last and Lost zine. It was time for drinks. I made my way over to the LA home of the world-famous cocktail bar, Death and Company, to meet up again with one of my favorite people, my friend, Ignition Press publisher, Philip Sadlick. While we got to hang out a bit during Comics Pro, that was for work. And tonight was about good drinks, delicious food, and the best company. We sat at the bar, ordered a few small plates and drinks. There's a reason Death and Company has been a cocktail institution since 2006. Their dedication to the craft of making a good drink is just next to none. We had a while before heading to dinner, so Philip wanted the chance to show me a fun bit of LA history. We made our way back downtown to the Grand Central Market, Los Angeles' largest and oldest public market. It was getting late, and most of the market vendors had shut down for the night. Still, Philip entertained my curiosity and let me explore. Around the time that I started Curious Haunts, I made a new silly rule. If I see a photo booth, I have to take pictures. They're ridiculous and fun, but that's the whole point. Because yes, I'm absolutely sure the world needs more of this face. Glamour shots achieved, we made our way over to another bit of LA whimsy, Angel's Flight. Originally opened in 1901, Angel's Flight has been through more than a few changes over the years. It still remains the world's shortest railway at just 298 feet. And the price of a round-trip ticket? Just $1. Philip and I hopped aboard and took the short ride up to the top. Along the way, he shared facts about the railway and its two funicular trams, named Sinai and Olivet. And of course, Philip saved the best one for the end. Over the years, there have been claims, by riders and bystanders alike, to have seen a lone phantom figure riding the cars early in the morning. And by the time the figure reaches the top, it's gone. We made our way to the top of Angel's Flight, paid our dollars, got our tickets, looked out over the city, and then made our way back down. It was time for dinner, and we were headed to the world-famous Musso and Frank. Since 1919, Musso and Frank Grill has been a Hollywood institution, a favorite spot for everyone from Charlie Chaplin to Marilyn Monroe. It's a spot where the classics shine, the martinis are perfect, and the steaks are delicious. You leave full, and you leave happy. Philip and I said our goodbyes, and I made my way back to the hotel. I couldn't help but think again about how lucky I am to have such wonderful friends like these. Every one of these adventures are fun, but having such amazing folks along makes it all more special. I woke up early the next morning. It was the last full day of the trip, and after a couple virtual meetings with the Ignition crew, I made my way for a coffee meeting with my pals from the media team, Pete and Terry. Pete had a little surprise in store for me, a trip to Horror Vibes Coffee. Opening its doors in 2022, Horror Vibes brought together their love of coffee and all things horror. Every surface is a love letter to horror, thanks to the work of artist Phil Bork, featuring everything from Pennywise and Ghostface to amazing takes on classic Universal monsters like Frankenstein's monster and, of course, my personal favorite, the creature from the Black Lagoon. Oh, and the coffee. Of course, they're all named after famous fright shows. I decided to go for the Call of Cthulhu Bay, which was tasty and not too sweet, with definite hints of ube and elder god. After the meeting, Terry agreed to tag along on my adventures for the day, so we said goodbye to Pete, and since I was already in a Lovecraftian mood, we made our way back to the H.P. Lovecraft Historical Society. Founded in 1986, the H.P. Lovecraft Historical Society has grown from a group of friends with a love for the Cthulhu mythos to the world's premier producer of Lovecraftian entertainment. Their collection of books, relics, and ephemera is nothing short of amazing, including first editions of Lovecraft's work, oddities, and some fantastic props made for their own productions. It's also important to note that the H.P. Lovecraft Historical Society acknowledges Lovecraft's abhorrent views on race and sexuality. They, like all of us that appreciate the mythos, constantly work to separate the man from the things he created and strive to recontextualize those creations for a new era. Because of that, and the level of creativity the Society puts into their work, I decided to become a member. After signing up and picking up a few things, we had just one last stop on this trip. LA's Nerd Bodega, Revenge of. Love comics? Pinball? Obscure special edition Blu-ray and more? Then this is the spot for you. I had the opportunity to meet the owners of Revenge of at Comics Pro, loved their take on things, and just had to visit the shop. I loved everything about the place, and once again found myself wanting to take the entire shop home with me. I picked up a few comics and trades and a DVD from their Mystery Machine, because how could I not? And then we wrapped up this adventure. We made our way back to the hotel. I thanked Terry for being such a gracious host. It had been a long and amazing trip. And to be honest, I was excited to get home. I woke up early the next morning, finished packing my bags, and said goodbye to the SLS. My car arrived, and before long, I was back at the Burbank airport. As I made my way home, I thought a lot about the thing that makes LA special. It's a city of sights and wonders, amazing food and drinks, spooky spots, and definitely the strange and unusual. And I like that. But most of all, the thing that makes LA special is the relationships. And those relationships are going to keep me coming back time and time again. And there you have it, Los Angeles in all its glory. And I'd like to give an extra special thanks to Cullen Bunn, Philip Sablick, Bree Sarpy, and the whole Ignition Press team for joining me on this spooky adventure. I had an amazing time. Now, you might be wondering, what's next? Well, I recently took an extra special trip to the town of North Bend, Washington, while visiting Seattle for Emerald City Comic Con. After that, it's off to Kansas City and Chicago. I've also got something extra special in the works for you all, but more on that soon. It's going to be a fantastically spooky time, and I can't wait to share it with you. Speaking of sharing, I'm excited to tell you about the story I've been working on recently. It's one of the most brutal and bloody horror stories that I've ever written. It's one of those kinds of ideas that burrows its way into my brain, and I just can't stop thinking about it until I set it loose onto the world. My partner bringing this new story to life is the amazing Mike Tisserand, an insanely talented artist who has worked primarily in the animation industry, but is finally kicking it loose here with me in comics. Now, the thing that has me the most excited about this story is that it's made for the people who don't think that comics are necessarily for them. Don't get me wrong, comic readers will love it too, but this one's for you, the horror fans, the lovers of true crime and weird fiction. It might be my favorite thing that I've ever written. This project is the first ever release from the publisher I've co-founded, Ignition Press. At Ignition Press, we love building connections and community, which is why we're offering this story first through a Kickstarter campaign. We're still a couple of weeks away from revealing the details, but if you're intrigued, sign up to be notified when we launch using the link in the episode description. All right, that's it for episode 4 of Curious Haunts. If you have a weird, wonderful, spooky place you feel like I should visit, please let me know. And if you'd like to join me on this curious and haunting journey, please like, follow, and subscribe. And if you know a fellow traveler who, like you, is drawn to the strange and unusual, I'd appreciate you sharing Curious Haunts with them. I'll see you again in 2 weeks. Cheers.